So I have I'm going to talk basically on diabetes or obesity and diabetes management COVID. What have we learned? And basically give you a very nice overview of obesity, diabetes management, and COVID-19. And we all know that this graph is very well illustrated. That there is a risk of hospitalization with comorbidities. This word comorbidities became very popular in the COVID. The risk of hospitalization in people with these conditions.
Thanks for giving time, sir.
Can we have everybody else muted, please, if you don't mind? And so we know that if you are asthmatic, the likelihood of hospitalization is 1.5-fold, hypertension is 3-fold, obesity is 3-fold, diabetes is 3-fold, CKD is 4-fold, severe obesity is 4.5-fold. Two conditions of any of these comorbidities is 4.5-fold, and three or more conditions is 5-fold. So obviously, obesity and diabetes have the most palpable impact in the current pandemic. So obviously, from a public health standpoint, there are a lot of studies to show that higher is the BMI, worse is the COVID outcome. And more than a dozen meta-analyses have been done which have linked to that. And clearly we know in the past also that obesity and influenza and obesity and ARDS was adversely linked. So obviously now we are looking at differing adiposity measures in COVID-19 and how it is impacting human health and human outcomes, mainly mortality and morbidity parameters. So if you are obese, you are more likely to die, you are more likely to get severe disease, you are more likely to be on a ventilator, you are more likely to get an ARDS. Genomically, if you are obese, people with European ancestry found obesity to be a causal risk factor with more hospitalization in COVID-19. So for every 1 kilogram per meter square higher BMI, if you are of European ancestry, if you got COVID and you are obese, you are more likely to die. And that is a genomic finding through a recent Mendelian randomization study which was published from the European literature, but that needs to be expanded of adiposity, ethnic groups, and genomics in COVID. There are no trials done to show that if you do bariatric surgery or weight loss, the COVID outcomes will improve. But there was a very interesting retrospective analysis where people who underwent bariatric surgery, people who lost around 12 BMI units through bariatric surgery had a 69% lower risk of hospitalization and lower risk of ICU admission than pre-surgery BMI who had undergone this thing. So clearly there need to be formal trials of weight loss to show whether they can impact adverse COVID outcomes. So that leads a biological plausibility that obesity contributes to metabolic derangements where the lung and kidney function is worse, the vascular health is worse, and there is low-grade inflammation due to obesity per se, which gets accentuated in COVID. And obviously there is a thrombogenic potential. So people who are obese, the obesity lessens the individual's ability to cope with systemic influence of the hyperimmune response which COVID has. Also, we know that if you are obese, then there is a deficient antiviral immunity. Any obese person has significant defects in innate and acquired immunity. And we know the dendritic cells with numerical and functional defects are seen in obese individuals. There is a insufficient number of unbalanced and subsets of T cells. There is altered function of B cells. And all that has been very well documented in the current era. So this is something which we know very well and we need to document it very well. And that's something which we recognize very well. So clearly, whether it is the natural killer cells, the macrophages, all the antiviral, anti-immunity which is there, obesity actually predisposes an individual to cytokine storm, progressive immunopathology, and dysregulation or tissue repair. So diabetes care in time of COVID is what Bansi wanted me to talk on. And diabetes and COVID is impacting mortality. If you look at whether it is adjusted for age, sex, deprivation, ethnicity, or region, the type 1 diabetic is 3.5 times more likely to die if you get COVID, and type 2 diabetic is 2 times more likely to die. If your glucose control is poorer, you are more likely to die. If your glucose control is better, you are less likely to die. So for type 1 diabetes, if your glucose control is poor, you are 2.19 hazard ratio to die and 1.62 if you are type 2 diabetic. The clinical phenotype of your patient also determines it. To approach glycemic control, the agent that fits for outcome is desired by the patient. So it's important that beyond age and male gender, males are more likely to die due to COVID. Elderly people are more likely to die due to COVID. There are some clear-cut differentiations which have come in COVID and diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, if you are African American, you are more likely to die. If you are Asian, you are more likely to die. In type 2 diabetic also, if you are African American or Asian, you are more likely to die. Deprivation, type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, very clearly we know you are more likely to die. So that data is available now. Duration of diabetes, more is the type 2 diabetes duration, you are more likely to die. And if the eGFR is less, both for type 1 and type 2 diabetes, the outcome is poorer. If your BMI is higher, both for type 1 and type 2, you are more likely to die. So clearly you can see that the data is clear cut and it is obvious. And therefore you need to identify patients with diabetes with a clinical service, and targets are a very good starting points. So I have divided my talk into 4 components. How does COVID pathology impact people living with diabetes? We know diabetes, obesity, and hypertension is a trio which impacts morbidity and mortality. We have the public health data to suggest that any diabetic is more risking and has a higher risk for infectious diseases. There's a higher risk for bacteremia, pneumococcal infection, lower respiratory infection, and type 1 and type 2 diabetic both have 6% higher chance of any infection-related hospitalization, forget COVID, and 12% infection-related deaths are attributed. There is a lot of reportage from the Chinese literature to suggest that hospitalization with this deadly trial of hypertension, obesity, and diabetes was higher. And clearly this was seen early in the pandemic, and it was consistent. Lot of data which came in. And you can see the odds ratio in the meta-analysis clearly showing that COVID impacts development of diabetes. COVID infection impacts mortality in diabetic patients. What is happening? The SARS-CoV-2 is nothing but a spike protein based virus which attaches to the ACE2 receptor that activates a scissor enzyme called TMP-RSS2, which incorporates the viral particle, and that keeps on cutting into the lungs, the heart, the kidney, the enterocyte, and even the pancreas, which I'll allude to a little later. There's very clear-cut genomic linkage to it, and we all know that there is an increased susceptibility of COVID-19 in diabetes, because what happens in diabetes? The neutrophil recruitment is impaired. The natural killer cells don't make adequate gamma interferon. The macrophage activity is impaired. The antigen presentation is impaired. The ACE2 expression is impaired. The immune response is dysregulated. So when you are a diabetic, you are more likely to have a cytokine storm, renal injury, cardiac dysfunction, ARDS, systemic inflammation, and multi-organ dysfunction. So clearly COVID and diabetes is directly linked, and you can also get COVID-related diabetes. There is a distinct entity called COVID diabetes now, where you can actually have first time in your life diabetes because of the COVID virus itself. And I'll again allude to that a little later, because we know the SARS-CoV-2 virus destroys islets through its functional ACE2, which are present in the islets. And it can cause new onset diabetes with diabetic ketoacidosis. So there's a lot of database now being collected on the outcomes research. And clearly, glucose is a vital sign in COVID. If your glucose is high, then your likelihood of death is higher. And this was very elegantly shown in this mortality study by Bruce Board, very clearly showing 28.8% people with diabetes are more likely to die. There's a 4-fold increased death risk with uncontrolled hyperglycemia. There's a direct endocrine link, because we know the angiotensin 1,2 acts on the MAS receptor pathway, which leads to anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic responses, which are favorable for COVID recovery. And individuals with severe COVID and diabetes have an imbalance of the ATR1 and ATR2 pathways. So the switch is actually there in an unfavorable pathway. And as I told you, simple glucose, which is high, actually adversely impacts the outcome, and diabetes has poorly outcomes. So when there is hyperglycemia or type 2 diabetes, it's an independent predictor of mortality and morbidity, because if there is metabolic inflammation, there is predisposed to release of cytokines. There is a cytokine storm, because whenever there are inflammatory cytokines, there is multi-organ failure, there's impaired healing, and there's a dysregulated immune response. So IDF clearly states that COVID is a functional immunocompromised states with diabetes, and hyperglycemia promotes viral replication. And clearly we now know these 4 facts. Number 1, people with diabetes have increased risk of innate immune defects due to glucose, which is high, acute and chronic. Diabetes have exaggerated pro-inflammatory cytokine response. There is increased ACE2 expression in diabetic population, and diabetes is a pro-coagulable, increased coagulable, hypercoagulable state. So does the management priority in people living with diabetes change in the COVID scenario? Absolutely yes, because there's a lot of collateral damage which has occurred, and we definitely need to impact health. So we need to prevent Diabetic people at high risk, we need to have them to have proper diet, exercise, proper monitoring to ensure that they have their social distancing, COVID appropriate behavior, so on and so forth. And outpatient care should not be disrupted. And that has been the big challenge. And a lot of guidance which is there, how to manage. A diabetic should never ignore their health in COVID times. And obviously people who get diabetes and fall ill, when they get dehydrated, they get infection, we get stress hyperglycemia, and they should immediately see their doctor and immediately get appropriate correction. And they should do a step-by-step approach, including isolation and so on and so forth. Standard sick day rules apply in type 2 diabetes with COVID, and we need to ensure that appropriate time insulin is given. So remember, tight glycemic control is the key, particularly in COVID affected diabetic patients. And that's really the key, and we have all seen that. So are there treatment pathways in COVID-19 which impact health? All diabetics get glucose fluctuations when you get COVID infection or any viral infection. We need to adhere to sick day rules, which are mandatory. We need to monitor glucose more frequently, either through SMBG or CGM. And we need to ensure that whether it is common cold, flu, COVID, sore throat, UTI, bronchitis, chest infections, skin infections, we know it's a hypercortisolemic state. So we need to tightly control the glucose. Never stop insulin. Monitor glucose more frequently. Hydrate, and ensure that if there is fever, get it checked. And then apart from hydration, we ensure that we have appropriate insulin on board. And there are a lot of guidelines for the ABCD guidelines from Diabetes UK. But when we are managing a person with diabetic patient with COVID infection, either we'll have type 2 diabetics on anti-hyperglycemic agents or insulin. Well, you need to look at the age, the severity of COVID, the cardiovascular comorbidities, and the hypoglycemia risk. And these are the targets which are same for mild younger patients, mild older patients or on steroids, and severe or critically ill patients. And we need to ensure that anti-hyperglycemic agents which cause volume depletion or hypoglycemia must be avoided. Dosage of anti-diabetic drugs may need to be reduced. If it is necessary to stop taking metformin, then you need to give an alternative. So asymptomatic people, mild disease patients, home managed patients, they can still continue their OHS. But if they get into hospital, probably we need to stop their OHS, monitor more frequently and put them on insulin. In the good old days, we said stop SGLT2 inhibitors. Even now, we often stop SGLT2 inhibitor in the hospital situation. So there's a trial which was done for dapagliflozin, which showed that it is safe to give DAPA, but we still don't advocate it. Metformin ideally should be stopped, but obviously if somebody is well controlled, they can continue it. Secretagogues and insulin have their own challenges. So when it comes to pharmacological management of diabetes in COVID times, in ordinary cases, subcutaneous insulin injection is given. In severe and critically ill cases, IV insulin therapy is given. But there are robust human studies in the field of anti-diabetic medications and COVID is lacking. But good glycemic control is the key. So during any illness, you know that sugar rises and we need to test more frequently and check for ketones. So insulin has very good data to suggest that insulin still is a standard of care. You know, data from animal studies showed that it reduced the renal ADAM17 expression in anti-diabetic mice, thereby reducing the urinary ACE2 shedding and increasing the intrarenal ACE2 expression. However, the human data in this was poor. Metformin may be anti-COVID. Sulfonylureas, there are no concern. Pioglitazone initially was thought to be poorer outcome from a theoretical standpoint because on the human pulmonary ACE2 expression. But the current data suggests that it downregulates ADAM17 in human skeletal muscles and may actually be protective. Liraglutide initially was thought to be adverse, but now the current data says that it could be useful. SGLT2 inhibitors was theoretically supposed to be adverse because of its impact on the human pulmonary ACE2 expression, but now we know that it may actually be useful. And the only agents which have shown clear-cut apart from metformin good anti-COVID activity are the DPP4 inhibitors. Because we know that the earlier version of SARS was MERS, and MERS had DPP4 as the target like ACE2 in COVID. And DPP4s don't alter the ACE2 activity in diabetic mice, and it's an anti-inflammatory substance. So DPP4 inhibitors, and my good friend Dr. Ajdesh Kumar Sen has said that this is the entry receptor for SARS-CoV along with ACE2. It was the key receptor for MERS2. So the DPP4 are serine protease inhibitors. There is a structural homology between DPP4 and SARS2 viral protease. So DPP4 inhibitors are anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic, and immunomodulatory, and DPP4 is increased in elderly, diabetic, and obese people. So there's a lot of retrospective data and good data to show that anti-diabetics which are using gliptins might have better or useful impact. And this was some data which suggested that actually the gliptins would decrease mortality and the hazard ratio can be as low as 0.44 and 0.19. And clearly you can see that gliptins are a standard of care, and maybe they have a pathophysiological mechanism by which they are having an anti-COVID effect. So obviously now there is a COVID-related diabetes registry, it's ongoing registry, and we know that we need to avoid DKA and hyperosmolar states in COVID times. We use a lot of steroids, and that's why we need to ensure that we need to do tight glycemic control in hospitalized patients with severe disease with COVID. We need to manage hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease equally well with diabetes and COVID. RAS antagonists, whether they are ACE inhibitors or ARB, initially had some concerns, but now all global bodies feel that they actually could be useful, and that's something which we know. So what do we know from hard evidence on COVID and diabetes? Can COVID cause diabetes? This is the first hardcore data published in Nature, and this data came out this year in April. COVID gains entry into the cells via the ACE2 receptors, which are widely distributed in our body. We know ACE2 expression in the islet cell and exocrine cell is inconsistently defined in literature. So this data shows that DPP4 receptors may facilitate entry of the virus into the ACE2 negative cells. And there is autopsy evidence to suggest that viral infection in endocrine and exocrine pancreatic cells, regardless of ACE and DPP4 status, still can exist. And there are cofactors like NRP1, HMBG1, and TMP-RSS, which are seen in this slide, which clearly suggest that there is a distinct entity called COVID diabetes, and that is a secondary diabetes. So this again further tells us the same thing. People who died with COVID, their beta cells were found to be infected with the virus. Clearly, COVID virus induces beta cell apoptosis, so it kills the beta cell. In vitro data says, how does that killing happen? It happens because the ACE2 receptor expressed in the beta cell has cofactors like TMP-RSS, NRP1, and TFRC. And because the SARS-CoV-2 uses the ACE2 receptor to attack and infect beta cells directly, so COVID-tropism, there is a new term called COVID-tropism, is beta-tropic. So COVID virus is beta cell tropic, and infection of COVID reduces glucose-stimulated insulin secretion. So when you get COVID infection, the glucose-stimulated insulin secretion from the pancreas is reduced, and beta cell apoptosis is induced by COVID-19, and that actually can be prevented by a cofactor inhibition called NRP1. And there is data which is now emerging to show that NRP1 inhibition may actually cure this problem. There is further data from animal studies which shows that people who died of COVID, all the islet cell types, whether it's alpha cell, beta cell, delta cells, were infected with the virus. However, COVID infection induced selective beta cell apoptosis. The ex vivo studies reveal infected beta cells express alpha cells, acinar traits, including glucagon and trypsin-1. So clearly, they know that the COVID virus appears to exploit the eIF2 pathway, mediating a beta cell transdifferentiation. And this is a cell stress response pathway. And if you inhibit this cell stress response pathway using a trans ISRB inhibitor, you can actually reverse transdifferentiation also. So as I told you, GLP-1 receptor agents might improve clinical outcomes. They are anti-inflammatory, preserve beta cells, anti-obesogenic, decrease anti-inflammatory agents. Gliptins might reduce severity of COVID infection, modulate viral entry into the cell, reduce cytokine production. So again, our standard of care. And SGLT2 inhibitors may be useful, but should be discontinued in hospitalized patients because they increase DKA, they can increase insulinopenia, and they increase the risk of dehydration. So as I told you, COVID kills, COVID kills, COVID kills, and a diabetic COVID, which is poorly controlled, kills, kills, and kills. Asians and Africans are very, very vulnerable. So we are in pandemic times, and we had to manage diabetic clinics through a virtual in the lockdown strategy. Our first wave is gone and over. There was a lot of immediate mortality and morbidity. Our second wave had a huge impact. And we are in the first tail post-ICU recovery, and now we are looking at a third wave. It is very likely that the third wave is likely to be small. There will be interrupted care on chronic conditions, but it will be much less than the second wave. The fourth wave, which will be left if the third wave comes, will be psychic trauma, mental illness, economic injury, and burnout, which we are all suffering from. So obviously, disasters and pandemic pose unique challenges in healthcare delivery. We know the food intake changed in COVID times, exercise intake changed in COVID times, energy expenditure changed in COVID times, lifestyle and medical services. So diabetes control became a huge threat. And therefore, coping with diabetes during that time became a huge problem. And Vijay published this very elegant study that very few people actually check their sugars very regularly. And we all know poorly controlled diabetes impacted COVID very, very badly. And very clearly, we know that remote consultation and communication are the two keys for COVID and diabetes, both for insulin titration, for hypoglycemic detection and hyperglycemia management. This was the key. And very clearly, we know in COVID times, who should do face-to-face consultation? New diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, somebody who wants to start insulin, somebody with pregnancy, somebody who has compromised renal function, has a raised potassium, low sodium, foot ulcer, infection, pregnancy, CGM, they all need face-to-face consultation. You can defer an appointment if somebody is type 2 diabetic, well controlled, and one or two drugs with lifestyle alone. But in virtual consultation is where we landed up. And a lot of follow-ups can be done through virtual consultation. So we are actually in a new normal to manage any chronic disease. And COVID is just one of them. We need to preserve ourselves to protect our people living with type 2 diabetes and diabetes in general. And we definitely need for every diabetic a very aggressive testing and ensure that they get appropriate immunity on board. We definitely need to intelligently use telemedicine. We definitely need to ensure that we practice telemedicine appropriately. And we know that we have been using all these apps appropriately for a better future. So obviously, telemedicine can be used by all of us, but don't forget nutrition. You need to drink adequate amount of water, have adequate fruits and vegetables, and ensure that appropriate nutritional habits and supplements are appropriately done. And that's something which is there. Also very important is COVID is interrupted vaccine delivery and vaccine supply in the non-COVID vaccine era. And clearly we need to ensure that if a COVID patient needs the influenza vaccine, the pneumococcal vaccine, the typhoid vaccine, the MB vaccine, the zoster vaccine, please give that. Don't disrupt that beyond the COVID vaccine. So ensure that all these vaccines which are needed are given appropriately. So this is my last slide. Clearly, diabetes is a risk factor for SARS-CoV-2 infection and is for it adversely causes severe COVID. Tighter the glycemic control, the better it is. We need to empower physicians, patients, and healthcare workers in managing diabetes. We need to use telemedicine and technology appropriately. We need to protect diabetics and we need to ensure that they are taken care of. And we need a very holistic approach. Another big tsunami which came in with diabetes and COVID was steroids and diabetes, which were used particularly during COVID times. But for brevity of time, I did not, dwell on that. That's a separate subject discussion. The hyperglycemia due to steroids and the hyperglycemia which has come, or the steroid-induced diabetes which got unmasked due to COVID times. Thank you for a patient hearing.